Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so excited to have another amazing entrepreneur with me to talk about my latest book, Small List, Big Results: Launch a Successful Offer No Matter the Size of Your Email List. So what I've been doing is interviewing folks that have not just taken the time to get the book, but also to read it and write a review, post it on Amazon, which is amazing. There's like nearly 170 people who've now done that. And I want to introduce you to Beth Salyers. And I'm now realizing I asked her how to pronounce the name of her company, but not her last name. So she'll correct me in a moment. She's the founder and CEO of Custom Learning Atelier. And here is the review that she wrote for the book. She says, "This book came at the right time for me. I knew the routes I needed to take to increase reach, but the how, the do this next practical steps remained elusive or wrapped in a cheesy freebie gimmick. I wanted someone to say, do this now and then do this next, and this book delivers. I have so much more clarity and focus for my resources." Now, let's welcome Beth up and welcome Beth to the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you for joining me. And how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Salyers.
Salyers. Beth
Salyers.
Salyers. See, I
Yeah,
asked the
it's
wrong
okay.
question
I've
earlier.
heard all. Usually, my favorite one is Slayer. That's always a fun one.
Yes, that's the people who can't read. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is awesome. First of all, how did you come across the work that I'm doing? I don't know that I know the full story.
Miss Mary Williams.
I thought that was the
Yay! So we'll
case.
sing her praises. We'll ask praises. We'll ask if her ears are burning with joy, because we're talking about her. So I work with her in other capacities, and if she recommends something, because she's all about processes and operations and really finding processes that feel good and work, because
Yes.
obviously those are the ones that are going to be sustainable. And
Yes.
so she's like, here, I'm doing this. Do you want to read this book? I was like, yes, I do.
So huge shout out to Mary Williams. Mary has been my systems and processes business coach since the fall of 2020. And it became really necessary for me to have someone like that on my team because my business was really reaching that sort of point where I couldn't just wing it. I needed better processes and systems. And she is the right person. So that's Mary Williams from sensiblewoo.com. So we'll make sure to share that link after the show to make sure
Mhm.
people know how to find her as well. So you heard about the book and you joined the book launch. You didn't just get the book, you also joined the book launch and wrote a review. So first, could you share a little bit about the book? What was your sort of reaction to the book and what lessons you draw from it that you're applying to your own business?
Yeah, I like to be a super nerd, so I was like, wait, I can read a book and dive in and get support around it and see what other people are thinking and help people doing good things. This is scary work, to bust out on your own and put things out into the world. It's inherently scary, and so to be able to support someone, and engage and to learn from the process, was something I was interested in. And so when I read the book, and anyone who's embarked in consulting or solopreneur and entrepreneur world trying to do your own thing, we've all signed up for all the freebies, we've all taken courses, we've all read all the articles, etc., etc. We've listened to the podcast. And so I was already going into it of thinking, okay, this is cool. How hands-on is it? Like, I can nerd out all day long about theory on my own, and enjoy doing so. But what am I going to do with my hands? I talk about that a lot in my business. This is great and all, but how does it apply? What can I do right here and right now? What do I do with my hands? And so when I started reading the book, I was like, oh, this is one of those books. This is actionable. This isn't just fodder for the mind, but something that I can, put some things I can put into place now. And in addition, I know that in 6 months I can come back to it and put other things in.
Yeah,
And that was it important.
one of the best compliments I received was someone said that this is a book, it's a quick read that you'll go back to over the next 10 years. And
Mm.
that you'll keep rethinking about how to apply these concepts. So what stood out for you? Was there a particular concept that you were like reading it and thinking, yeah, this is one I want to dig into?
Yeah, I really liked, I come from, I've been formally trained as a researcher, phenomenology
Ah,
specifically. And so I really like that aspect of looking for themes or commonalities that come up amongst the networking and the circles and the places where I'm finding myself, whether it's like-minded people, whether it's people who do the same thing, whether it's potential clients, whether it's just people with similar values. and really looking at how can we intentionally go about looking at the themes that come up amongst these folks. And I like how, there's some people who, you feel good after talking to them. And so it's a fantastic coffee chat. And I have a list of wonderful human beings who I contact and connect with regularly for that kind of like motivational boost and connection, especially in the world of Zoom. And then there's other folks who we talk a bit more about business. And then there's other folks who are like, actually, I can refer people to you. Or, oh, really? You do that? I kind of need help doing that. And so I really liked the step-by-step approach that you provide of getting yourself, applying that methodology into looking at all these, as we talked about before we hopped on here. There's so many meetings. We have no shortage of meetings, but how can we go into those intentionally with some forethought? That was really, I enjoyed that.
So I think that you're referring in specifically to the wake up your network sort of process, and then the process of identifying and categorizing people as either likely coffee chats, likely prospects, referral partners, possibly fellow experts, people you can learn from, and then setting an intention to connect with them on a regular basis or some basis, or at least one time to have that conversation. How have you been doing that as you've grown your own business? It sounds like you already had some of those skills, or at least a sense of how to do that. Were you doing that for yourself, or was that something that you were doing for other people mostly?
I can do that with data, how it trained to do so, and I think happened naturally. Some sort of it happened naturally. So I have a list of people who are kind of like your colleague / friend board of directors who you get together with once a month or once a quarter, and you talk business, you talk personal, you talk this whole journey of doing what we're doing. And then there's other folks who we connect with intentionally of saying, we're going to try to get stuff done. We're holding each other accountable. And there's other people who I'm like, I need to know what you know. How can I connect with you? And it's a very intentional with my scheduling and time. As you said, we're just hopping to Zoom and Zoom and Zoom, and it can get exhausting. But there's one way to take away the exhaustion, the overwhelm, is by finding what the intention is in each one of those meetings. Is just hanging out with one of my best friends and catching up? Is this a conversation with someone about a potential client? Is this someone we're going to give a proposal for? Like, what intentionality? Yeah. And it really helps shape the energy going into that call, and being more. I think that's just what came through for me for your book, is just like, how can we be more intentional through all these sometimes very opaque phases?
Yeah. I love how you're thinking about it. It's a way almost to keep yourself rejuvenated. So you're really thoughtful about how you're using your time, why you're using your time in this way, getting more out of the experience, the intentionality, the follow through. I think that's really, really key. I think that's why I feel really, as an outgoing extrovert who loves being around people, I feel very energized, even though I've been, essentially home for a couple of years, because of all those great connecting points. Thinking about the book one more time, I just want to know if anything surprised you, because it sounds like you had some experience with some of this. Did anything surprise you, or was there any tools that you were like, that would be something really helpful?
What surprised me was it wasn't so prescriptive that it didn't feel like I could put my own twist on it. And it was not, it wasn't salesy. It wasn't used car salesman-y tactics. On this journey, you see a lot of different approaches of how to approach building your network and increasing your community, and how to connect with people. And sometimes it's very goal oriented of, I need to hit these numbers at this time. And for someone, myself, I can only speak for myself. That's not really how I roll. And so the fact that you give a lot of, here's what you do with your hands, here's what you do with your spreadsheets, how you do this. I appreciate that. I'm not a spreadsheet person. So the actual act of writing all those things down a spreadsheet would move it into a chore category. But I was able to read all of your tips and exercises. And so, oh, I could do this in my beloved Word document. I could do this on my Remarkable. I could do this on my
Right.
whiteboard. And I really appreciated that kind of freedom with all of your tips and tricks and exercises, that if I didn't have it look exactly like the example on the page, I never felt like, oh, well, I'm not doing it right.
Yeah, I've been teaching networking for a long time, and occasionally I get asked, "What's your favorite CRM or contact management system?" And I always say the one that I'll use, and that's changed over time. And I would joke, if you were going to just use a stack of index cards, that could be great. And then I met someone who had a whole system around a stack of index cards, and I had him come on my show. And Ron Tester, he came on my podcast on the Schmooze. I'll share a link to that later as well. And I just think, like, yes, it's the thing he knows how to use, and he uses it, and it's like low tech but super effective and right in front of him all the time. And I'd rather people, whatever modality you're using, as long as it's something you're using, it's about being thoughtful, right?
Right. And that's what I love about your book, is that it gave you the thought processes to go through to use whatever technology you're using.
Right. That's great. So you also joined my launch team.
Yeah.
And I assume you've experienced a launch before with a book. Have you been part of anyone else?
No.
No. Oh, this is so
No,
interesting.
this was my first. I was just like, oh, I get like a sort of see how this all happens. Yeah, sure, I'm game.
Well, so now I'm really curious, as a person who's not had this experience, what was it like for you?
I honestly, I had no idea the pre-planning and the forethought and the assistance and the step-by-step and how long ago I first knew about your book for then it to come out on the date. Like, I intellectually understood, like, of course you have to plan that. Duh. But like the details of that and who and how, and that, I know Mary's role and other folks who may or may not, be involved. And you're like, oh, kind of like seeing behind, you pull the curtain. And I'd never seen behind the curtain for a book launch. So it was cool.
Well, you've been kind of ruined. I will now profess. Maybe it's even confess, because I've been on over 50 book launches and written reviews for more than 50 books. And most of the time they send you one request and you make a note somewhere on your to-do list. And that to-do list note gets transferred week to week to week to week until it's a word, and you can't remember what that keyword even means. You forget whose book it was or what was the due date, and it becomes a sort of nagging, I'm supposed to get something done, I think. When was it?
I can see that.
And eventually you figure it out after a little bit of effort, and you write the review, and you don't really feel great about it because it's become a to-do item. But I'm guessing you never felt like, oh, this is gonna, be effort.
No.
What was your experience then? Like, how would you describe? You said you sort of knew about the book for a while, and it was sort of bringing more and more into your consciousness. What was that like?
It was brilliant, because left to my own devices, it would become that thought in the back of my head. But there was consistency and intentional questions, and do this now. Here's the thing. Here's the link. As easy as possible. Consistently throughout the entire process, where looking back on it, if I had gotten an email that said, oh, read this book, leave a review, my gut instinct would be like, yeah, sure, I'd love to. Not untrue. But then this would happen and this would happen. Then I'd be like, wait a second, I know that guy's name. I read that book. Oh, can I still do that? Where do I do that? It's such a, but every single time, like the pacing, the cadence of it, it felt held. It felt intentionally contained. Where then I would get an email and it'd be like, okay, here's a link, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. Cause all I have to do is click. I can click. And so that was cool.
We can extrapolate some of this for other kinds of asks that we might make in the world. We have to be very specific and clear on what we're asking, and make it really easy for people to take the action. And the level of effort should match the relationship. So I was also sort of building a relationship with you as we went, because once I helped you through the process of writing the review, first of all, I had to get you to download the advanced copy. Then you share the review via Google form. Then you posted it on Amazon. And then I waited a little bit, and then I shared with you a way for you to post on social, and basically said, take your own review and share it. Or here's a bunch of other things you could share instead. And so I didn't want to throw all the asks at once at somebody, but I think there's a way in which people think they can't ask again, right? Like, I already made one ask. I can't ask again. And in fact, I think it builds a relationship. Until here, I said, hey, who wants to get on a LinkedIn Live with me to talk about the book? And you're like, hi, I don't know you yet. Let's do this. And it's like, that's actually not true. We know each other through this
Yeah.
process, right?
Yeah. I think you nailed it, because for multiple reasons. We don't want to be annoying. We don't want to be the schmoozy used car salesman. It's like, come on, buy it. Come on. That's annoying and dishonest, and it feels out of it. It's all those things. But at the same time, the way of breaking it down into those small steps, at no point was it overwhelming. At no point was I like, oh, another email. At no point did I ever feel like that. I was like, oh, here's an easy way for me to do the next step of doing something that is important to me and I care about.
Win-win.
Sweet.
Yeah.
It was a win-win. And so now, in talking with, and when there was opportunity of just doing a live, I was like, sure.
Right.
I mean, I've been aware of your work now for months.
Yeah.
And to see the interaction where your team and I have had just going through it asynchronously to the point where I was like, oh yeah, I trust Robbie. I'll hop on. Like, I don't know what's going to come of it, but
it's so
there's no
interesting.
fear.
Yeah. I think we could all try to apply this to whatever we're putting out into the world. It's about building that runway. Even before, I don't know how early you joined the launch team, but I was putting the finishing touches on the book in August. I was due to my editor right after Labor Day, or actually, she moved it up earlier until the week before Labor Day. I remember being like startled by the date change. So I was really focused on that. But in the process, I was workshopping the title with my audience, basically using social media to ask people about the title. And the title changed dramatically because of that feedback. But that's when I first started inviting people in late August, right around Labor Day, to join a launch team while the book was still in the final throes of being written and edited.
Wow.
So those folks, also gave input about my cover, like to my network, and that also drew people in. And so by the time the book was getting to the point where I was ready to release the advanced copy in early October, there had been this like 5 or 6 weeks for some people of knowing this was coming and of waiting and building some anticipation around it, which is different than a lot of authors and any content creators or anyone who creates solutions for their clients. They tend to create these things more in isolation and then just announce them. And you can see even from the book how this is the same. I basically follow the process in the book in a lot of ways.
Which, I think that's one of the reasons why it rings so true, because it's in integrity of how you did it. It matches what the content in the book is and the structure of the book. And as a reader and as someone who uses it as a workbook itself, you can feel that. And I think that's important. And I think that I didn't know that. I don't think I joined until October. I know it was post Hurricane Ida, so it was at least mid-late September on. But to know that that's all going on, but it's not surprising because of how you frame the book and how you frame your exercises. Community and integrity come through as key values. And so it's not surprising that the process itself is rooted in those same values.
How lovely. You're the first time I'm actually having a conversation with you for you to name these as my values. And that I was able to express those values through a book launch, which some people could frame as, I need support. I need you to take an action. And really, I thought the value of the book was in reading it. So I'm going to do everything I can to help you read it. because that's the only way you're going to get the value. And once you get the value, you're going to want to share it with people. And I'm going to make it as easy as possible for you to make that happen. So,
Mhm.
right, like I think there's a different frame of even how you ask for help. I want to mention
Right.
for folks who are also watching that if you want to join the launch team, it's actually not too late. And there's one reason in particular you might want to do so. I am hosting a live book launch debrief masterclass on December 10th at 1 o'clock Eastern. And it's only open to members of my launch team. And I know that Paya is listening in, my assistant's listening in. So she could put in the robbiesamuels.com/book launch in the comments now. That's what we can do. And I believe I've got a banner here that I can throw as well. I have one around here. Somehow I don't have one. I have so many banners here. We'll work on that. So, oh, here we go. There we go. We'll have that go
That's
around
that.
for us
Look at
for a
that.
moment.
Look at that. Well,
So
you have Mary and Paya. Oh my gosh.
I have such an amazing team. It's so important to surround yourself with excellent and exceptional people. But I really think that a lot of people were drawn in because they were thinking about how they would apply these skills in their own business and witnessing it. But we're
Mhm.
gonna do there's a 90-minute, 60 minutes of content, and then 30 minutes to open it up to Q&A. And coming live means you can ask me questions, and I can help you think about how to put this in your own, like you said, like it's not like I'm telling you have to follow it step by step, but there's some intentionality and strategy that you should apply. Don't just do an email and hope, or just post it on social and hope people are going to write you reviews and all that good stuff. So
Yeah. I'm
awesome.
coming. I'm excited. I just checked. I'm all signed up.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So, so this is great. So now, and I see, gosh, this is what I'm saying about having an amazing team, right? So thank you, Paya. I've been with Paya since February 2020, so she's witnessed everything that's happened in my business and grown alongside me. So as we wrap up here, any sort of final thoughts about what's going to happen next for you? Like, what are the things you're most looking forward to? Is there something you're kind of trying to apply this for in your own business? Is there a new
Mhm.
offer or one that you're trying to garner more attention for?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I actually just got off the phone, another Zoom call earlier this morning with someone who's going to help me with marketing, and all that stuff of getting it out into the world. And so applying some of the principles that you talk about in your book of being very intentional, but creating community around it as opposed to putting content out, right? That's a very different relationship. I think checking our prepositions there of of how we're going about that is, we were talking about that this morning, of
Mm,
how to garner a community,
right.
as opposed to laying out a platter and hoping people pass by.
Right, which a lot of entrepreneurs sort of default to doing, thinking
Mhm.
it's easier, and it takes a lot more effort and often doesn't lead to the results we want. So,
Yeah.
speaking of getting results, I do have this year-long program that you heard about. Did you actually attend the 3-day training? Were you part of that?
Nope.
So you can write me privately, and I'll send you the private link to the replay, which is no longer available publicly. But anyone who wants to hear about this can write me a little note. So I did this big results training. So 2 weeks after the book came out, I did this 3 2-hour sessions, which really dove into the concepts in the book. And I took people through an experience. There was a lot of breakout rooms, really good, that kind of live experience. I'll probably do it again next year as well, live. And then it led to this year-long offer that was a really big investment. A few people signed up, which was wonderful. But now, as part of that year-long, I'm creating a 12-week sort of module that people can purchase sort of on its own, and it's 12 weeks to creating an irresistible offer. And it's really
Mm.
walking people through that wake up your network process, the research calls, the figuring out the themes around the problem language, and ultimately getting to the point of ready to test through a pilot of some kind where there are people who are ready to pay you because they want whatever it is you're creating with them. So for people who weren't ready for the year-long program or didn't think that was quite for them and they want to sort of get to that experience, that's something that's going to be launching in February. And what's interesting is that it's actually a module of the year. So the people who signed up for the year are also getting it, but then they're getting 7 masterminds. So they get
Mm.
support around implementation. And
Oh,
people who
cool.
come to the 12 weeks can opt into getting some of those masterminds as well. But I just think, you want to be creative about how do you serve, not
Mhm.
get hung up on the modality, but really listen to people what they need. And what I heard was people needed a little more assurance that they were onto something before they invested in the marketing. And like a lot of what you're talking about is after you have product market fit, it makes sense to start hiring people. But a lot of this work is really our work. You
Right.
can't farm out relationships. But once you
No.
have something proven, you can scale it a bit by inviting other people to help you do some of the biz dev.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful 'cause, that's what we do. We do, learning is our
Right.
jam, and so we know that the multiple offerings and the
Mhm.
interconnectivity, of how that learning is structured is so important because we learn through structures too, not just the content that's
Right.
provided. And so it's really cool to hear when people are intentional about the structures that are also teaching.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, if anyone's listening, wants more information, you can just comment below. What you could say is 12 weeks, right? 12 weeks in the comments below, and I'll know you want to know more about that. And by the way, that's a little tip. Anytime you're posted on social, rather than giving out the link, you can always just, in the comments, just ask people to write a keyword and then reach out to them privately. And that way you get a lot of engagement on a post. And you can also track who's
Mm.
actually interested instead of just put the link out in the world and hope. It,
Right.
it's interesting, right? Like it's same end result in a way, but
Mhm.
you can nurture those connections and support people through a process because it may not be. I'm also working on a 1 day mastermind for people who are already selling something and want to sort of grow their revenue, and that's going to be
Mm.
later in the spring. And that's a very different kind of audience than the people who are trying to figure out how to make one sell. And their needs are different
Mm.
as well. And so you want to I think it's really key, right? You're thinking about learners and what are the things people need and how do you deliver it. I think what you're doing in your business for your clients. It's about how do you apply that to your own business as well. I've
Right.
met so many people who are really good at doing this for other people, but not so much for their own business. It's the whole like
100%.
shoemaker and their kids not having shoes. Hey, you've
It's
been really wonderful. How can people find you and follow your work?
Yeah, so our website is www.customlearningatelier.com. And then probably easiest if you're seeing this on LinkedIn, you can follow me on LinkedIn, and we also have a company page, and we're on IG.
Brilliant. Yes, we've tagged
Yeah,
you on LinkedIn so people can just click there
cool.
and connect with you and follow you there as well. Thanks you so much for spending time. Thanks for everyone who's been watching either live or on the replay. We appreciate you and we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.